Hello, I'm Catherine Maguire. Welcome to the Soul Alchemist Podcast. If you are on a journey of personal or spiritual growth, you are in the right place. It's my desire each week to share wisdom, inspiration, and practical tools with you to help you remember the essence of who you are, reconnect to your goal, and step consciously, authentically into your power. Welcome along on what is a chilly morning in southern Italy. There's snow on high ground, there's snow on tops of the mountains, but oh my goodness, is it glorious? We have a blue sky, the sun is shining, and it's just the most wonderful day. When I was out walking my dog this morning, it really felt everyone's buongiorno was really filled with aliveness and joy after what has been a very dark, wet winter. And it was such a good reminder, we are beings of light. I really believe we crave the light. And when it's there, we really just relish it. And it really lifts our mood, lifts our spirit, lifts our energy. So if you're in the Northern Hemisphere and it's still dark or damp or wet where you are, trust me, spring is coming. The light is returning. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, enjoy the high days and the light of summer. Oh, it's such a precious thing. So today we are going on a treasure hunt. I want to take you on a bit of a treasure hunt for your gold. But before we do that, I want to kind of give you a little bit of a backstory as to why we're doing this. So when you come into this glorious earth, very quickly we learn to adapt, and very quickly we shapeshift into what we're not, because we get feedback. We get feedback from our parents. We get feedback maybe from our family, our teacher, our peers, our community, our culture, of what's acceptable and what's not. The things that we should do, the things that we shouldn't do. Or maybe, we shapeshift into a version of ourselves because we're trying to keep safe or keep our siblings safe. Or maybe we're trying to get love from our parents. So we go and try and excel at something to get their approval. But ultimately we get to a point where we're not truly being ourselves. Maybe part of it's us, maybe part of it is us, but there's usually a good hunk of it that's not. They're coping mechanisms, behaviors, beliefs, and reactions to the world around us that we absorb and, allow it to morph us into a version of who we are. And then a point comes where that doesn't sit well with you anymore. So it happens in different ways for different people, but something will happen that will, be the catalyst that puts you on your personal growth journey or your spiritual journey or your soul alchemy journey, whatever you want to call that. And as part of that journey, we spend a good hunk of time and energy looking at who we're not. So I'm not my parents. I'm not this belief. I'm not this coping mechanism. I'm not the sum of my ancestral lineage. I might have part of it, but it's not totally who I am. I'm not a victim. I'm not a rebel, whatever that is. Okay. So we spend a lot of time looking at what we're not to come to who we are. And that's the first stage of the journey, and it's a lot of work. It's a deep dive into really looking at ourselves in a whole new way. And it takes courage. It takes a lot of courage. But then after a while, we get annoying. And the reason we get annoying is because invariably we kind of go, well, I've done all this inner work. Look at me. I'm great. Look at them. They haven't done their inner work. And we can get a bit judgmental. And if we don't get judgmental, we can get a bit fixy. And by that, I mean, we want everyone else to do what we've done. We want everyone else to embark on the inner work journey because we know it's changed our life. We know we're better for it. We know we're, feeling more ourselves. We know we feel less stressed, that there's more joy, all those things. So we want everyone else to do it. And my husband has a phrase, he says, you can be the priest or the prophet. And the priest is the one who tells everyone what you need to do. You're telling everyone else what you need to do. You're kind of finger pointing. Whereas the prophet, who doesn't tell anyone what they need to do and just leads by example. But we're the priest at that stage, and then what needs to happen to us on our journey is that, or what usually happens on our journey is we hit this spiritual ego death. And this is where we have to die to ourselves yet again, but in a deeper, more profound way. And this can be really hard. This can be really hard because up until this point, you think you're doing great. You really think you're doing great. So my ego death looked like this. It was 2 days before I was about to turn 50. I was really looking forward to turning 50. It felt like a big deal. It felt like a monumental moment in my life. And I felt like, as I've been going through perimenopause, it was really marking a point on my journey, and a kind of a step across the threshold into that next version of me and into my wisdom, etc. And 2 days before I turned 50, I fell down a flight of marble stairs and broke my fall by putting my head and my arm through the door that was at the bottom of those stairs. And I ended up in bed for the best part of a month. I was in a huge amount of pain. I'd done a good bit of damage to my body, and my ego had to die to the part of myself that had really prided myself on being so independent and so physically strong and so capable and able in my physical body. And I wasn't able to do anything for myself. Someone had to come and wash me, someone had to come and look after me, someone had to come and clean my house, which I really struggled with because I did all those things, and it was really hard. And that was the spiritual ego death. And it took me to a place of deep surrender, and deep compassion for myself, deep forgiveness for myself, and deep compassion for others. And especially realizing that, I'd such judgment around people who weren't, physically able, like, why don't you move your body and all that? And it gave me a whole new understanding of what it meant not to be able to have your body, work the way you wanted it to work. So it was a tough, tough time. And, we'll all go through that on some level. For some people, it might be a type of mental breakdown. For some people, it may be that, a significant relationship breaks up. Maybe you get fired from your job. You've been riding high in your career and you get kind of fired out of the blue. There's loads of ways it can happen, but it'll happen in a way. It's like where you've put your pride. That's where the spiritual ego death will come. And my pride was definitely in my physicality, in my strength, in my ability. So when we go through that ego death, and you can't force your way through this, it's a slow process, I'd say I was in that tunnel for about 2 good years, and I'd faced so much fear in that place, which is another part of that spiritual ego death. You really go and meet fear and meet that whole sense of loss of power, and loss of personal power. And when you start to emerge at the other side of it, it's like you've been, you've been completely taken apart. So the next part of the journey is, well, if I'm not that, and if I've kind of dissolved, I've died to myself, who am I now? I've done the part of the journey where I let go of the roles and the beliefs and the coping mechanisms. And now I've had that spiritual ego death. Who am I? And this is where we go on the treasure hunt. And the way we go on the treasure hunt is we start looking out around us as to where we put our gold. And our job at this phase of the journey is to go and gather it and take it back. So maybe you've projected it onto someone else. Maybe you've hidden it away. Maybe you've stashed it away. So what does that mean? When we are tiny, there are parts of ourselves that are so luminous, so luminous and shiny and golden. They're too much. We can't carry that golden energy for ourselves. It just feels too much. And maybe as well, we got a bit of negative feedback about it. We were told we were too much, too loud, too needy, taking up too much space, whatever it was. So we tucked away our gold, but we often, what we do is for safekeeping, we project it out onto someone else. And we will do that continually as we go through our life until we're ready to take it back. So one of the places as I was going through this journey, I realized I put my gold was on Walt Baker. Walt Baker was my first ever boss in the television industry. And when I came out of college, I'd studied communications and television production. When I came out of college, Ireland was just really in the most awful recession. So there were so few jobs in any industry. And I had gone to college in a niche industry in a tiny little island country, of which at the time there were 2 television stations and there were no jobs. And so I did some freelancing gigs and I did some part-time jobs and different things. And then one day I got a call from a friend of mine who said that an American television company were opening up offices in Dublin and they were going to broadcast into the US. And it meant there was jobs. So this was like gold. All right. So found out the details, applied for the job and got called for an interview. And the man that interviewed me was Walt Baker. And he was larger than life. He was a big, tall man, big, wide man. His voice was from his boots. He had this big signet ring. His glasses were big. Everything about him was big. And years later, when we became friends. And years later, I remember going to his home in America. And it's like his home was big. He had Great Dane dogs. His car was big. His bed was big. The bed in the bedroom, it was this huge wooden bed and there was 3 wooden steps you had to climb up to get onto the bed. His wife was a big, tall, red-headed woman, an amazing woman. And I was just in awe of him. His mantelpiece was lined with Emmy Awards for shows he'd produced. Himself and his wife had kind of been in Hollywood in the heyday of Hollywood and had all these amazing stories. They introduced me to Louise Hay and Science of Mind and metaphysics. Like they were just an incredible couple. But his wife came and went. She was in America and I was in the office with Walt every day. So Walt was where I put my gold. So when I realized I put my gold in Walt, I went and I rooted out a photograph of him. And Walt has been dead for 10 years. And I started to cry. I really missed him. We became really good friends. We were friends long after, he finished with that company and long after I finished with that company. We became friends until he died. And I was really upset seeing his photo, but I was like, Walt, I've given you my gold. So I put him in front of where I work every day. And every day I'd look at it and talk it. And then I started to list out the qualities that I had put onto Walt, that he was larger than life, that he was kind, that he was funny, that he was curious, that he was childlike, but he was fair and honest and wise, all these amazing qualities. And I had to go through that and say, okay, but which of those qualities are mine? Which of their qualities in mine that feel too shiny or too sparkly that I couldn't hold for myself so that I projected onto Walt? And then I sat with that list. I put Walt's photograph away for a little bit. And in my meditation, then one morning, I sat and I went to visit Walt and I said, Walt, I've given you my gold. I've given you my gold and I need to take it back. And he looked at me and he said, sweetheart, he used to always call me sweetheart. And he said, sweetheart, I don't want it. It was always yours. So I took back my gold. And then later on that day, I went and I got the photograph back out. And for the first time in my life, I could see Walt in that photo as Walt the human, not Walt that I had made this kind of deity out of, who I had given my gold. All right. So that is the journey we go on. We go on this treasure hunt to find our gold and take it back, because our gold is our essence. Our gold is our energy. Our gold is our personal power. And without it, we can't be fully ourselves. So what I want to invite you to do this week is take a walk through your life. And who are those people that have an extra glimmer? Who are those people that have an aura of gold? Who are those people maybe that you've idealized or put on a pedestal? And get out your journal, get out your notebook, get out a pen and a paper and write down what are the qualities you see in them? Because the qualities you see in them are a projection of yourself. And then write them down and circle the ones that really stick out, the ones that really jump out. All right. And then when you're ready, in your meditation or make a cup of tea or go out for a walk with that person and engage with them and say, I'm taking back my gold. Actively choose to take back your gold. And notice what that does in your own body as you take your goal back in and embody it for yourself. And notice what it does with regard to your relationship with that other person. Now, maybe that person you don't know, maybe they're a celebrity. Maybe that person, like Walt, is long since dead. Maybe that person is still living. You don't physically have to meet them, but meet them in your meditation or meet them in your journal and choose to take your gold, take your energy, take your power back and notice how it feels. Because to be our gold, we have to own our gold. And when we own our gold, we then have to embody it. And that makes us feel whole. That makes us complete. And that, to go back to my husband, is how we become the prophet, not the priest, because we're embodying the energy we want to be in the world. And that becomes, that becomes the marker for other people. It's like they see you being joyful. They see you being embodied. They see you being your true full self. And that is the inspiration for others. You don't have to do anything necessarily. You just have to be yourself. It's that Oscar Wilde quote, be yourself. Everyone else is taken. And it sounds so easy, but it's not. It's a process. But if you take your gold back, take your energy, take your power back, all of a sudden you become an inspiration for others to do the same. And that, like a pebble in a pond, has a ripple effect that makes a huge difference in the world. So that's what I want to leave you with this week. Go retrieve your gold. Where did you put it? Who did you project it on? Where did you stash it? And see if you're willing and able to take it back this week. All right. And if you need some help with that, get in touch. Get in touch with me about a soul alchemy session and I'll guide you through a process to do exactly that. All right. But take a walk through your life. Where's your gold? And see if you're really and truly willing to take it back and know that in taking it back, you become whole. And that, my loves, is where we start to feel fulfilled because we are full of ourselves. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid growing up, that was used as something scornful, as a put down to say to people, oh, she's so full of herself. Well, the truth is, we're supposed to be full of ourselves because that's how we're fulfilled. So get rid of any of those negative voices that told you should be less and that you should turn down your light, and choose this week to claim your gold and go on the treasure hunt and take it back. So have a gorgeous week. Have a really gorgeous week. Let me know how you get on. If you would find this podcast helpful or inspiration, I would be so grateful if you could like the episode, give it a 5-star rating, share it, comment, because it just makes the algorithm kick into action and show it to other people who might find it helpful. And if you'd like to take your support a little further, there's a Buy Me a Coffee link down below. You can support the podcast by using the Buy Me a Coffee link. It's like an online tip jar. I have decided, as we're now at episode 31, to kind of pimp the podcast. So I'm going to invest in some new equipment and a camera so we can have a video podcast as well as sound and just improve the sound quality a bit. So that's what I'm going to use the Buy Me a Coffee tip jar for. So wishing you a gorgeous week. Enjoy the treasure hunt, enjoy the quest, enjoy your gold, and allow yourself, give yourself permission to be so full of yourself. All my love. Slán agus ciao.